When you think of the Middle Ages, what comes to mind? Knights in shining armor? Castles guarded by imaginary dragons? Or perhaps a gloomy era full of superstition and plague? The truth is, none of that is entirely accurate, or entirely false. The Middle Ages were not one single story, but a vast ocean of centuries that stretched from the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD to the heights of the Renaissance nearly 1,000 years later. For a long time, it was called the Dark Ages, as if those 1,000 years had simply been a pause between Rome and the modern world. But that's an injustice to one of the most fascinating periods in our history. To understand it, we need to divide it. The early Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 10th century, marked a time of profound transformation, where old empires fell and new ways of life emerged. The High Middle Ages, between the 11th and 13th centuries, brought a burst of creativity, holy wars, and heavenly architecture. And the Late Middle Ages, leading to the 15th century, stood at the threshold between two worlds, the end of one era and the beginning of another. But before we understand how it ended, we must explore how people lived. Because beyond kings and crusades, the Middle Ages were made of daily life, of millions of stories lived in silence. The Middle Ages were not one single tale, but a tapestry of thousands. And the first one we'll unravel is how this new world was organized. After the fall of Rome, life changed completely. Cities emptied out, trade collapsed, and Europe, fragmented and afraid, sought new ways to survive. That's how feudalism was born. Picture a vast network of unwritten agreements. A king at the top of the pyramid granted lands to his vassals in exchange for loyalty and protection. These feudal lords, in turn, gave lands to knights. And at the base of everything were the peasants, men and women who worked the land day after day, hoping for a harvest strong enough to outlast winter. The castle wasn't just a fortress, it was the center of a miniature universe. Within its walls, judgments were passed, decisions made, and protection offered. But there was also fear, power, and strict hierarchy. Everyone had a place, and moving from that place was nearly impossible. The peasant owed loyalty to the Lord to the king. But even kings knew there was a greater power, one that spoke in the name of God, and to whom everyone bowed without question. It was a world of loyalty and oaths, but also of deep inequality. And at the heart of it all, controlling everything, was a power even greater than that of any king. That power, of course, was the church. For centuries, the Catholic Church didn't just guide the souls of men, it guided their destinies. Every birth, every marriage, every death passed through its hands. But its influence went far beyond the walls of the temple. It was the church that blessed the Crusades, holy wars that sent thousands of Europeans across thousands of kilometers in the name of faith and power. But not everything was violence. The same church that fueled wars also protected knowledge. In monasteries, monks copied ancient texts, preserved knowledge, and quietly lit the spark of learning. The first universities emerged. Gothic art and towering cathedrals rose, works of beauty that still take our breath away. This was a time when faith soaked everything. The fear of hell, the hope of heaven, the mystery of the unknown. But that same faith could be used as a tool of control. Heresies were punished with fire, doubt with silence. And still, something was shifting. Because amid this world of dogmas, some minds began to look beyond. It was a force for unity and civilization, but also for conflict and repression. But its dominance couldn't last forever. The world was about to change again. And this time, the engine of change wouldn't be war. It would be knowledge. Just when the world seemed stuck in place, something began to stir. Trade was reborn, cities grew, and with them a new social class emerged, the bourgeoisie. But dark times came too. The Black Death swept through Europe, taking with it more than a third of the population. It was a devastating blow, but also a catalyst. The old structures began to crack. The printing press, invented by Gutenberg, allowed ideas to spread faster than ever before. New trade routes, like those that would eventually lead Columbus to the New World, opened unimaginable horizons. The Middle Ages gave way to the Renaissance. But they did not go quietly. They left deep marks. In their shadows, the roots of modern science were planted. In their fears, the great philosophical questions were born. And in their faith, the seeds of the Reformation were sown. The Middle Ages weren't a bridge between two eras. They were the fertile ground where the seeds of our modern world first sprouted. It was a time of chaos and creativity, of darkness and of light. A reminder that even in the most difficult moments, humanity always finds a way forward. If you enjoyed this journey through time, subscribe for more fascinating stories. And tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment from the Middle Ages? Because history isn't written only in books. It lives on in each of us.